NFL execs are throwing shade at the Davante Adams signing, some saying that he's a little washed. Also, we're taking a look at the Rams cornerback room. When should the Rams take a cornerback in this year's draft? Where they stand right now at that position? That's coming up next on Locked on Rams.
You are Locked on Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramily, and welcome to another episode of Locked on Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked on Rams, part of Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor, join the party, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleacher Report, Dodgers Nation. And as always, I'm joined by the people's champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, the Rams pre-half and post-game show host. He's entering his 10th season covering your Los Angeles Rams. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, executives talking about the Rams signing of Davante Adams. We're also going to look at the cornerback position and how aggressive will the Rams be in the draft finding another cornerback, and the history of the Rams drafting at number 26. How many times have they drafted at 26? Who are those guys? But first, today's episode of Locked on Rams brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, Travis, so you had Davante Adams on your show a few weeks ago. He definitely seems like the type of guy that if any executives were talking about him in a good or bad way, he would probably find some fuel at this stage of his career, right? All the greats do. That's kind of what they do. Well, there was an executive that had some things to say. The Athletics' Mike Sando, he polled NFL executives around the league on free agency to get their unfiltered thoughts. And Sando, he wrote, the decision to add Davante Adams after releasing Cooper Kupp was interesting because Adams does not fit the typical mold of a Rams receiver. He's a traditional X, not known for his blocking. Some also wonder how Adams would fit in McVay's scheme, which often puts receivers in condensed sets and features them as blockers. Could Adams evolve the way Larry Fitzgerald did in his career? One exec found that unlikely, said Larry was willing to get rugged, block, do some dirty work over the middle. So my take on that is there's certain receivers that you make exceptions for because they're so good in other areas. I think when you look at someone like a Davante Adams, he's one of those guys where he's open even when he's covered. So it'd be interesting to see how Davante Adams fares in LA. I think they're going to get the best version of him at this stage of his career, kind of the 30-plus-year-old version of Davante Adams. But thoughts on this anonymous NFL exec?
Yeah, Doug, one of my favorite expressions is two things can be true at the same time. I think that description of what the Rams typically do and ask their wide receivers to do in the Sean McVay scheme and is accurate. I think anybody that's watched Sean McVay and the Rams since he got here, coming on 9 years ago, knows that is what they ask their wide receivers to do. That is why guys like Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Robert Woods have been so successful here because they can do all of those things that were in that description, that they can play all three wide receiver spots, that they are physical guys, that they are willing to do the dirty work that anonymous executive is talking about. I think that's an actual pretty good description of what Sean McVay's offense does. What is also true is Davante Adams is really, really good. What Davante Adams does, I think, is exactly what you just described, which is special talent deserves special consideration. Now, do the Rams have wide receivers like Kupp and Nacua and Woods and others because that's the only thing that can work? Or is that because that's what they had and they made that work? And if you get a player like Davante Adams, who is more of a traditional X, like you mentioned, can Sean McVay make that work? I like my chances with Sean McVay having a bunch of talented football players. I think that's a pretty good formula. I think that having a guy that's as good as Adams, we've seen what Adams does with an elite level quarterback with Aaron Rodgers in his first stop in Green Bay, and it was terrific. I think it's going to be terrific again with Matthew Stafford. I think it's a perfect example of two things being true at the same time. Yes, that's not typically what they ask, but this is a different sort of player. And Sean McVay is certainly capable enough to, utilize a player of Davante Adams' skill set. I don't think this is an Allen Robinson situation where it's just a really bad fit and it doesn't work. Allen Robinson's not Davante Adams. This is going to be a successful marriage, I believe. But I don't think that the read, what the executive had, is wrong necessarily. I just don't think that it's the complete story. The complete story is, yeah, that's right, but this guy's great. McVay's great, and I think they'll figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah, and you brought up a couple of points I want to touch on. The first one is Allen Robinson. I never want to see the Rams signing Davante Adams at this stage of his career when they did be compared to Allen Robinson, because I think it was a totally different situation. I think you look back at how that went down. That was a situation where Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, they wanted him. They showed interest in him, and they advocated for him. And then the Rams, they obliged. In this situation, the difference is Sean McVay and Les Snead were the ones wanting Davante Adams. So that tells you that they had a plan for him, and as far as schematically how he's going to fit in this offense. And the truth of the matter is even if you don't get the 100% prime version, all-world version of Davante Adams, even if you get like 80%, 90% of what he used to be, which I think is still possible based on how the numbers look, based on how the productions looked, that's still going to give you a top 20 receiver in the National Football League, anywhere from 10 to 20, right? I do think that there's a world where he still gives you top 10 level production, especially considering how re-energized he's going to be, especially considering that it's with Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay and a team that is once again open up that championship window and going all in. So I think there's that. And I think it's also coupled with the fact that, look, you have to look at it this way. He is going to give you more than Cooper Kupp is going to give you this season. I can tell you this right now. The year that Davante Adams is going to have with the Rams, I think it's going to be better than the year that Cooper Kupp's going to have with the Seahawks. And then on top of everything else, you can release him after a year if you don't think that he is the player that he once was. So it's a win-win on so many levels.
Yeah, I'll kind of work backwards. I think you're right. Let's just say that for whatever reason this doesn't work. Okay, fine, you're out of it in a year, and it's not the end of the world. I also think that the comparison to Kupp is apt. That they needed to get better there, and I hate saying it, and I'm going to stop saying it because I think that we've made the point that we all love Cooper Kupp, but that was not the player that we fell in love with. This was a player that was not quite that dynamic the way that he was, and they needed to get a little better there. And I think you'd have to be pretty stubborn not to think that Davante Adams is going to give you more than Cooper Kupp is at this point in their respective careers. I agree with you there. And look, I hope that Davante Adams hears this. I hope that Davante Adams comes in with something to prove. I think that this is, look, he's at a point in his career where he doesn't have another 10 years left in the league. He's got a relatively limited amount of time left to be a high impact player. And this is a team that has big expectations. This is a team that, is expected to be a playoff team. This is a team that pushed Philly probably more than any other team did last year in the postseason. And they're trying to take that next step, and Adams is a big part of it. And I like it. I look, there are none of these moves are completely risk-free. There is nothing you can do. It's just, it's going to work. But I'll take my chances with the Rams brass. I'll take my chances with them signing players because they've gotten a lot more right than they've got wrong. And I think the odds of this one being right are pretty darn high. I'm excited to see it. I really don't have a ton of reservations about Davante Adams being here. I shouldn't even say a ton. I don't have any reservations about Davante Adams being here.
Yeah, there are some metrics out there that can point to when a receiver, especially on the perimeter, is starting to drop off. I mean, he had a 77% success rate versus zone coverage. That was down from 84.4% the previous season. And when that number drops, it kind of points to just slowing down, not having that same quickness, not having that same ability to get in and out of your breaks. But it's not like it went from like 84 to like 24. You know what I mean? I feel like the Rams, Sean McVay, everyone can like close that gap and get it to 80 and then just feeling better. So, hey.
Well, and there's this too. I'm with you. And those numbers are a drop, but they're not a terrifying drop like you just described. But I just want to throw two more words in there. Raiders, Jets. You know, like those are garbage teams. Those are bad teams that don't function properly. And I would challenge anybody to really thrive in those environments over a long period of time. And the Rams are competent. The Rams have a coach. They have a quarterback. They have a plan. I like Davante Adams' chances a lot.
For sure. By the way, I looked it up. There's 31 Taco Bells in Los Angeles, but that's not even the most. You know what city has the most Taco Bells?
Give me a second. Hold on.
I'll give you a clue. You used to work there. Like it's Houston. H-Town. Yeah. H-Town's the most TCBs, man.
All right.
Speaking of fast, I have a question for you about fast foods in the next segment.
I love the good folks at Taco Bell. I will eat at Taco Bell happily, and I like it. But wouldn't it make more sense that places like LA and and Houston didn't have a lot of Taco Bells? They're near Mexico. There are a lot of places where there are Mexican restaurants with Mexican people making authentic Mexican food. I don't know. It just seems like Cleveland should have the most Taco Bells. Portland, Maine should have the most Taco Bells.
That's a really good point. Houston. I will say I did just get back from Tokyo, right? And I'm here to tell you that I've splurged on some dates here in LA to try to impress girls to take them to expensive sushi spots in LA. And the 7-Eleven sushi in Tokyo is better than the best sushi in Los Angeles. Make that make sense. So, I think it's kind of a similar kind of comparison there. But I got a fast food question for the next in the next segment. We're going to talk about the cornerback spot as well. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
All right, the Armada Player of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, we're going to take a look at one of the draft prospects to pick one guy that just kind of stands apart a little bit, the guy that we believe showcased the strength and power needed to push the Rams forward as we look ahead to next season. So this week's Armada and easy for me to say, clear-cut Player of the Week is Josh Conerly, right? So Josh Conerly is big. He's a powerful guy. He's an offensive lineman. You need some depth there. You need to start being able to move that thing forward. We're talking heavy duty, rugged, conquers the road grader with capability and confidence, dream big, go big. And that's what we're talking about with offensive linemen and the Nissan Armada. They say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what I think Josh Conerly can do for the Rams. It's clear that the Player of the Week is ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of their outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Okay, Travis, so taking a look at that cornerback position, you look at where the Rams are at and the guys they have coming back, a lot of guys. Really, you're looking at the depth of the position. Darius Williams, Kobe Durant, Kakela Witherspoon's back in the mix. You got Darion Kendrick coming back off the injury. Kind of the wild card, the guy they picked up, Emmanuel Forbes, who was a first-round pick that the Rams get from the Commanders, kind of a reclamation project. You also have other guys like A.J. Green, Sean Jolly, Cam Lampkin, Josh Wallace, Charles Woods. Really, the only guy not there from last year is Trey Tomlinson. Question is, do the Rams kind of dip high into the draft to get a cornerback? Now, outside of someone like a Travis Hunter, you can really have at the 26th pick, if they want to go cornerback, they could. I'm not so sure that they are, but we'll kind of look at some guys in a second. But just kind of what's your overall outlook of the quarterback spot right now? Because I think you look at that defense right now, that is an area where you certainly, I think, need to find yourself adding in the draft.
Yeah, so it's interesting you say that because, and you just listed off a bunch of names of guys that were on this team, and my first instinct is that is a place of need. That is a place where they need to get better. That is a place where maybe you need to be a little bit more dynamic. You need to be able to maybe take the ball a little bit more frequently at that spot than they've been able to do over the last season. But let me just kind of flip it for half a sec, D-Mac. Did you ever get the sense that the Rams were getting murdered last year because their corners weren't very good? Not really. I mean, they weren't taking the ball away, at least not. But for me, it wasn't, oh my God, they're terrorizing this guy. They can't find a way to cover this guy up. That there were plays that weren't great there, but it wasn't like one guy that they went at over and over and over again. My first instinct is, yeah, that's a place you need to address. But I also think that's a position that you can address in bulk over time, later in the draft, in free agency, in these sorts of things, through trades. That this has never been something that has absolutely sunk the Rams ship. I would like to see them get better, but it's a little bit like running backs, that the best guy is the best guy for a reason, but the next best guy isn't that far down the list, and they're a lot cheaper, and you can throw a lot of bodies at it to see how it works. But if they did go corner early, I wouldn't hate it, but I think there are other places that maybe are a little harder to find. The offensive line kind of jumps to mind for me right there. I think that you're getting a little long in the tooth at some positions there for the Rams, but it's a tricky one, because on a spreadsheet, yeah, I think that's where they need to go. But when I think about the guys they had a year ago, I don't love any of them, but I don't hate any of them either. It's a weird group for this football team.
Yeah, I think kind of my read on the cornerback situation for the Rams is the fact that you bring back Akella Witherspoon, Darius Williams is still back in the fold the way he is. That kind of is an indicator that they're probably not going to go high on a cornerback unless they want to trade down and get a couple picks and a guy falls in their lap that has a lot of value and a lot of upside. Then maybe they do. I mean, last year's draft, the first defensive player wasn't selected until the 15th overall pick in the draft. So you just never know if teams are thinking offense, if teams are thinking defense, and which of these cornerbacks could be available. But the fact they have those two guys, and the fact that who would be available, I think would be interesting, because there's, of course, Travis Hunter. He's the game changer. He's the top cornerback. They're not in a position to draft him. He's going to go extremely high. But if you look at kind of that next tier of guys, Will Johnson out of Michigan, Trey Amos out of Ole Miss, Maxwell Harrison out of Kentucky, Jahdae Barron out of Texas. Of those guys, Trey Amos out of Ole Miss, he's kind of a really, really nice fit. He's someone that would fit perfectly in cover three and those match zones kind of that they're playing. And he's physical. He's has that high kind of competitive energy they kind of look for. But I just don't know that they would go so high on him. I think they might look to go either high value tight end if it comes into their lap, they'll find the best tackle available. Or I'm starting to kind of think that it's the Rams being the Rams, and you kind of possibly trade down to get multiple picks, because we've seen them have so much success doing that.
Yeah, I think they're in a pretty good spot because they've got a full palette of options, right? They can kind of do anything that you just described, and it would fill a need, or you can trust them to make good decisions by just collecting some picks. I think one of the things that, like, you can kind of split the baby a little bit. Last year, they finally picked in the first round, and they got a grand slam in Jared Verse, right? They got not just okay, he's a starter. He might be an all-pro sooner than later. He's that good of a player. So if they feel that there's a player that can make a similar impact there, then absolutely you don't trade out. But the other side of that is, you look at what they've done in the back half of the draft at a variety of different positions, in the secondary, at wide receiver, at running back, really, across the board. There almost isn't a position that they haven't addressed later in the draft where one of those players hasn't become a starter. Whether you look at a guy like Cam Kitchens, whether you look at a special teamer like a Cardi, you look at a running back like Kyron Williams or Puka Nacua at the wide receiver spot, all these guys were taken really late in the draft and have made really significant impressions on this team. So I like where they are. I like that they can do. If they want to move back and get more picks, great. If they target a guy early that they like, great. They've been really good with their drafts the last few years. So I like either direction that they go at this point.
Yeah, and I do think that they're probably not looking for that immediate starter based on kind of what they do have. I think they're going to look for competitors, guys that they can played a lot more press coverage last season that we've seen in years. And I think that you're seeing this defense become a more physical defense under Chris Shula. So I definitely think that when it comes to dipping into it, I see guys like Maxwell Harrison out of Kentucky, Noel Williams, guy from Cal. There's just names out there that you could get later in the draft. And last year, if you look at that position, he had 33 cornerbacks taken. And of those 33 cornerbacks, I mean, there weren't a ton of game changers in that group. And you look at round 2, I mean, last in the first round, you had 7. You had just 3 in the first round, 7 in the second round, and then there was 3 in the third round. So 8 of those guys had a 6.3 grade or better for the year in the rookie class. So I just don't know if they're going to follow the similar pattern this season. But it's certainly an area where if you're a Rams fan, you got to point to a couple ways that, okay, the linebacker spot, if you don't feel like you have that, you're not going to rush to the draft to get your guy high, right? You feel like you can find that elsewhere. Cornerback's a little bit more of a premium position, so I think they're going to be more enticed to draft higher if that guy becomes available.
Yeah, I do too. I think that's right. I also think, and I wouldn't bet on it, but I also wouldn't be knock me off my chair with a feather if it happened. Don't sleep on quarterback either. Right? Like that's something that's going to have to be done eventually. And if there's a guy there that they like, that all of a sudden that maybe isn't where they're going to pick, but they were getting closer to where the Rams might pick. And we talked about them maybe moving back, the possibility of them maybe moving up to get a quarterback that they've identified as, look, if we're within 3 or 4 picks of that guy, let's go get him. I wouldn't bet on it, like I said, but I also think that there's at least a possibility. I know there's a quarterback in that draft that they have their eye on, and if he's still floating around there, I wouldn't be shocked if they went and got him.
Talking about Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart, something like that?
Not Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, that's they're playing with him, man. They're playing with him for sure. Les Snead did say that you're basically always open to drafting a quarterback, and you got to be kind of early at that position. So I wouldn't be shocked either. I think that this is a Rams organization that has proven to either get their guy in the draft or get him via trade, but you don't see really good free agent quarterbacks, right? That's just not how you acquire them.
Almost never. That's just not how it works. So if you're going to want one, you're going to have to be near the top, or you're going to have to be really smart about identifying the guy that you want and going to get him. And I'd give it a 1 in 8 chance that that's what happens, but 1 in 8's 12%. It's not the end of the world. It's a possibility. I just going to leave that there.
Yeah, in a couple of the solo episodes, we broke down Jackson Dart, and it's like you look at a lot of his advanced stuff grades out higher than Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. So kind of got that. He's kind of got that vibe. Kind of looks like he could play a quarterback in a movie type of thing. That I think works for him with the Rams. But this is what I want to bring up though. So the In-N-Out tweeted after Shohei Ohtani's walk-off, should there be an In-N-Out at Dodger Stadium? And for me, I would say to myself, yeah, it sounds great, right? In-N-Out Dodger Stadium. In-N-Out is as good as it gets when it comes to fast food. I really think it's a kind of a gourmet meal, but I mean, can you imagine the line? You would get your double-double, and it'd be Tanner Scott out there in the 9th inning. I mean,
yeah. I understand that. I understand your point. However, if you go to an In-N-Out and the line is wrapped around the block, and it usually is, right? Think about how fast they move you through. And now, I'm not saying it's 4 minutes. It's not, but it's 15 or 20, and they can get you through 50 or 60 cars. I've done it. Trust me. I've done the research. I've seen it. They'll figure it out. They're really good. They don't miss. The burger's always terrific. If they want, look, maybe have more than one location. Just open it up and see what happens. There's never a bad place to put it in and out as far as I'm concerned. Double, grilled onions, chopped chilies, fries, and a pink lemonade. Just saying.
That's pretty close to what I get. That's pretty close to what I get for sure. Yeah, you go animal style on the fries?
No. That is like, because I'm doing double animal style chopped chilies. I don't need a double animal style on the fries, but the pink lemonade is just.
I couldn't disagree. For me, it's like if my fries don't require a fork, that means I haven't ordered properly and there's not enough like on it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I respect that.
Only McDonald's can get it. Like I always get mind blown when McDonald's asks me if I need ketchup for their fries. I'm like, no, your fries have earned the no ketchup policy. Like you guys don't even need. Why do you guys even have ketchup here?
There you go. I agree.
Yeah, but honestly, too, like how many times have you gone to In-N-Out after a game? Right after a Dodger game,
it's not zero.
It's zero. You never gone to In-N-Out after a Dodger game?
No, I'm saying it's not zero. Of course.
No, it slaps, right? It goes hard. I don't want that experience like robbed for me. You know what I mean? Because like, are you gonna bang at In-N-Out? in and out in the 8th and then in and out like 2 hours after, it might rob that experience for me. You know what I mean?
I'd like to find out. That's a good problem to have. That's a good problem to have. But coming up next, we're going to begin our series of looking at Rams players that were drafted at the 26th pick in franchise history. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Travis, so we're going to look at some of these players that were taken with the number 26 overall. We're going to spread this out just throughout the month because it's pretty interesting. You would think, okay, a franchise that has as much history and tradition as the Rams, I mean, they probably made a ton of picks with the number 26 pick, right? But really, they've only drafted at the 26th overall pick and made a selection there throughout their history 4 different times. 4 different times throughout their history. And first guy we're going to look at is running back Cleveland Gary. Cleveland Gary, 1989. So in the 1988 NFL draft, the Rams, they did select a hometown guy, Gaston Green, All-American running back from UCLA in the first round. He was an absolute bust, unfortunately. 3 seasons with the Rams, rushed for just 451 yards, didn't even get into the end zone once. How are you not going to score a touchdown? Wow. How are you not going to get into the end zone once, man? Come on. Yeah.
It's embarrassing the Bruins.
At that spot in the draft, too, you would think you're trying to make it happen. You're trying to validate the pick at some point and get that man in the end zone. That it's a donut is alarming.
Yeah, I can't believe it. This absolutely embarrassing. But the Rams did end up going for another player in the same position. They got Gary with a 26th overall pick in 1989, and he won a national championship with Miami, and he actually performed well for the Rams. In his second season, had 14 touchdowns. I was tied for the most in 1990. A couple years later, had 1,125 yards, 7 touchdowns, 52 catches, 293 yards, scored 3 through the air. I mean, in 5 seasons, he really had a really nice year, a really nice time with the Rams until he played his final season with the Dolphins in 1994. So that is not where they're going to be going this year, right? Is not going to be a running back with the number 26 pick. But how much you remember from the great Cleveland Gary?
I remember him being on the team, and that's about the extent of my memories of Cleveland Gary. Like, he does not crack the list of the memorable Rams running backs for me. Like, from that era, you're still think about some of the other Rams backs that you had at that point, that you were not super far removed from Eric Dickerson, Jerome Bettis. There were some other guys in there that they had taken. So I don't have a lot of memory. I don't have any negative memories, I guess. So that's something in and of itself. But I don't have a ton of Gary memories at my disposal.
I mean, he wore number 43, which is interesting for a running back. Also, no gloves. Got to respect the no gloves.
If he probably didn't have any gloves because Eric Dickerson took them all. Eric Dickerson wore every piece of equipment that was available to him. By the way, smartly. If you've seen Eric Dickerson at all in the last several years, Eric Dickerson looks like he could still play. He looks healthy. He looks ready to go. So anybody that was like stripping down the equipment, no way, man. Give me every last piece of gear that you have. I'm wearing it. I'm gonna roll like ED.
Yeah, no, that guy, he was one of those like all-time equipment dudes. The goggles,
the neck roll, everything.
The upright.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he had it, man. He definitely had it. But, yep, Cleveland, Everett Gary getting his love on this show. And we're going to continue to look at some of these players the Rams have taken number 26 overall as we lead into the draft. We'll see if they actually stay there. And it is less need in the Rams, so you never know what they're going to do. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. You can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.